TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. The mission of Heritage Christian University is simple. They aim to advance the churches of Christ by equipping servants through undergraduate and graduate programs. Heritage Christian University produces effective communicators of the gospel, focusing on evangelism and a commitment to Scripture. Heritage Christian University is accredited by the Association for Biblical Higher Education and offers the following degrees: Associate of Arts in Biblical Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Master of Arts, Master of Ministry, and Master of Divinity. Since 1968, Heritage Christian University, formerly International Bible College, has offered affordable degrees in biblical studies, allowing graduates to thrive in their ministries without the burden of loan debt after graduation. For more information about Heritage Christian University, visit www.hcu.edu. That's 3 W's and a dot, hcu.edu. Heritage Christian University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. To say that everybody smoked would not be fair, but to say that smoking was everywhere would be pretty accurate. I was born in 1963, and smoking was everywhere. The heroes on TV smoked, the people in commercials smoked, the people on talk shows smoked. Dean Martin would come out on his variety show and he'd have a cigarette in his hand. There were shows that showed medical people. Dr. Kildare smoked, Dr. Gillespie smoked. I guess the only doctor on TV that didn't smoke was Marcus Welby. Smoking was everywhere. People smoked in hospitals. People smoked in the waiting room of hospitals. People smoked in public restaurants. People smoked on airplanes. You could go outside the church building on a Sunday morning and some of the deacons smoked. And then all of a sudden it began to fall out of favor. There was lawsuits. There was things about tobacco being addictive, and there were things about cancer-causing agents, and things were being carcinogens. And then all of a sudden, where you used to go into a restaurant and everybody smoked, you got, hey, you want to sit in smoking or no smoking? And then there were designated areas, smoking versus non-smoking. I live in a city, and I take it for granted that smoking in a public area has been banned since about 2005. And you can only smoke outside in certain, you can't smoke in any public building in the city of Huntsville. Smoking has fallen so out of favor now that if you rent a movie and you start looking at the rating thing, it will say this movie is rated and there is violence, murder, decapitation, and smoking. How does smoking get listed with violence, decapitation, and murder? And this is really not a discussion to be about anti-smoking. I understand that one of the most addictive things on the planet is nicotine. My mom and dad smoked when we were kids. My grandparents smoked. Both my grandmothers dipped snuff. And it was just part of the culture. Jackie's mom and dad smoked. And I remember when my parents quit smoking, and I remember when Jackie's mom and dad quit smoking, and what a difficult thing it was for them to do that. And you start thinking about people who have this habit and they never thought anything was wrong with it, and they just grew up doing it. And then all of a sudden, everything on TV says don't do it, and you try to give it up. I remember when I was at Harding University, we had a guy come to campus and do a concert, Don McLean. He's the guy who sang Bye Bye Miss American Pie. And so he gets up on stage and he says, well, this is really neat to be here at a private Christian university. And, I told those folks that hired me to come sing that I would do my entire concert and I wouldn't smoke. And he started his show, and about 3 songs in, he goes, "Hey, did I tell you guys that I told these people that I was going to do this show and not smoke?" And about 3 songs later, he goes, and by the way, this is the only show I've ever done where I didn't smoke on stage. And a couple of songs later, he was talking about smoking again. And he spent more time talking about not smoking than he did actually singing, it seemed to me. And maybe it would have been a better concert if we'd let him have a cigarette. But this comedian was talking about smoking, and he was talking about how hardcore, smokers are. And this comedian did this routine, and he said that, he believes that the smoking thing is actually how the wind chill factor was invented. And so he says, here's this scenario. You got these guys at a TV station, and it's the weather people, and they're about to go on, the 10 o'clock news. And the guy says, man, I can't believe they banned smoking in this building. And one of his buddies said, well, it's against the law. It's against the rules. And if you get caught, they'll fire you. Look, I got to have a smoke. I just have to. Okay, tell you what we're going to do. We will let you smoke, but you have to take all your clothes off, climb up the fire escape, and smoke on the roof. And the guy goes, done, I'm in. Up the fire escape he goes, in his birthday suit, smokes on the roof, comes back down. They said, how cold was it out there? He says, man, it's cold. Well, how cold did it feel? Well, it felt like it was 22 because I didn't have any clothes on. And so they started reporting the wind chill factor, not how cold it was, but how cold it actually felt. And maybe they did the same thing with the heat index. Hey, man, I really got to have a cigarette. Well, you're not allowed to smoke in here. Well, what can I do to smoke? Tell you what. Take all your clothes off and go sit on the hood of that car in the sun and smoke, and you can have a cigarette. Done. They run out there. They have their smoke break. They come back in. Hey, how hot did it feel? It felt like it was 111. Now, for scientific accuracy, the wind chill index is related to the rate that an average naked human body in the shade would lose heat on a still day. As the temperature decreases or the wind speed increases, the air feels colder because the temperature difference between your skin and the air is now maximized. The larger the temperature difference between our skin and the air, the greater our heat loss and our sense of coldness. So, example, if you had a 40-degree temperature with a 10-mile-an-hour wind, a naked body would lose heat at the same rate as if it were 28 degrees with no wind present. Now, when you wear clothes, it prevents the air next to your body from moving, and air that cannot move acts as insulation and reduces your heat loss, thus keeping your body warm. Now, since heat only flows from warm to a cool object, it is not possible for an object to drop below the temperature of the surrounding air, regardless of what the wind is doing. The wind will reduce the time it takes an object to cool, but it will not and cannot cool the object below the air temperature. Plain water in an automobile radiator will not freeze so long as the regular air temperature stays above 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even if the wind chill drops to 10. Okay, so consider 2 identical glasses of water. The water is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Put one in a refrigerator at 35 degrees and place the other one outside where the temperature is 35 with a 25-mile-an-hour wind. 25-mile-an-hour wind and a 35-degree temperature makes the wind chill factor 8 degrees. The glass outside will cool faster, but it will not cool to less than 35 degrees. It will not freeze. The wind chill cannot freeze water because it will never go lower than the actual temperature. So although it feels colder, it's actually not colder. The heat index is an index that combines air temperature and relative humidity in a shaded area to posit a human perceived equivalent temperature as to how hot it would feel if the humidity were some other value in the shade. And so all these wind chills and all this stuff about heat index is how cold it feels, but not how cold it actually is. In truth, in reality, it's not as cold as it feels. Factually, it's not as hot as it feels. In truth, it's not as bad as we first perceive. It's not as hard as we think it is. It feels impossible, but it's just difficult. It feels permanent. It feels like it'll never end. It feels like it'll never get better, but it's temporary. We fool ourselves and say, hey, this feels temporary. I'll just do it just this once. I'll make an exception. But when you make those kind of choices, it feels temporary, but the consequences are often permanent. Sometimes it feels like criticism, but it's just correction. Sometimes it feels like somebody's judging you and they're telling you something because they love you. Sometimes a person acts like, or it comes across as if they are full of hubris, and they actually possess great wisdom. We experience things and it feels like punishment, but it's actually discipline. There are times when it felt humiliating, but it was just humbling. It felt like failure, but it was learning. You see, what it seems like, what it feels like, and what it actually turns out to be is not something that you measure with your feelings. Experiencing something and measuring the unpleasantness by a subjective measure is probably not a good way to evaluate what's going on in your life. What is the effect? What is this causing? Is it causing strength? Is it causing growth? Is it causing learning? Am I expanding my understanding? Am I growing in my capacity to relate to other people? Is it allowing me the ability to have empathy? Is this an experience that has an outcome that is different? Is this an experience where I don't just have to feel what's going on to evaluate the effectiveness of it? What it seems like and what it actually is should not be measured just by how it feels. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3Ws and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the donate here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure, is sponsored by us. What? We sponsor ourselves? Is that even legal? Check us out on Amazon. You can have access to the titles of Pedagogue, the youth ministry book by Lonnie Jones, Cognitive Spiritual Development, a Christ-centered approach to spiritual self-esteem, Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space, a small essay using the principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to talk about psychological and emotional self-defense, If I Were a Mouse, a children's book written and illustrated by Lonnie Jones, and then The Selfish Reel, a very short story about a decision. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel to see archived lessons and presentations from across the country, some videos with rope tricks and knots, Don't forget to visit the Facebook page, 550 Guys, to learn about the little rope men that we make and that we invented and that we make. And then be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. This is Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.